Timothy Luckhurst, Principal of South College, Durham University and former BBC News executive. Thank you very much indeed for joining me this afternoon. As you watch this from your vantage point as a former BBC News executive, do you feel that this has been very badly misplayed, mishandled by the BBC? Or do you think the BBC has had almost no choice but to observe the protocols and the finer points of employment law and therefore couldn't name this person and couldn't have moved it any quicker? How are you perceiving this?
A slightly more nuanced position, I suppose, Vanessa. I think that we can be proud of the BBC in one sense. It has revealed this second set of allegations through its own reporting. It has held its own Director General to account. That's something that is pretty distinctive to our UK national broadcaster, that BBC journalists have to question their own boss forensically in order to try and reveal the truth. So the two things that please me about this entire and appalling saga is that one, a great national newspaper, The Sun, has broken a story of which it can, I think, be genuinely quite proud. And two, the BBC has conducted itself in a manner which reminds us that whatever eccentric problems it may sometimes have, it does believe in holding itself to account. Is it in crisis at the moment? Well, there is nothing, I think, that the BBC would like more than for the presenter at the centre of these allegations to identify himself. But I don't think he will. And your correspondent and his legal guest have made it very clear why that's very difficult. Unless an MP decides to use that parliamentary privilege route, I don't think we're going to see a quick solution to that one.
On the other hand, you know, this person has to go about his business. He has to, you know, buy food. He has to, you know, I suppose deliver family members to different destinations and just go to the hospital and just do all the things that people do on a daily basis, and has to break cover. And it will, I would imagine, eventually seem to make itself clear which key member of BBC staff isn't working. You know, yeah, you will kind of run out of holiday days, run out of other reasons for this person not to be seen on screen, and then won't it be absolutely underlined in red who it is that's not there?
Well, it might be clear to an awful lot of people, Vanessa, but that's not quite the same thing as giving formal confirmation. And whilst this presenter is presumably being given very clear legal advice by his own legal team, that advice is clearly not to come out and identify himself. Will the BBC do it for all of the reasons that have been identified? Almost certainly not. Of course, we have the problem that the internet is a wild west. That's one of my gravest concerns about the nature of our modern world, that we as journalists work to serious codes of ethics. We understand the law, we abide by those ethics and by those legal requirements. Whereas online, millions of our fellow citizens think that they're living in a wild west on Twitter or Threads or Facebook or a dozen other social media sites and make wild allegations. And of course, those individuals can be sued for their allegations, although it might involve bringing 95 separate legal cases. But Twitter isn't responsible for what people say on its platform. Threads isn't responsible for what it says on its platform. I think that these organisations should be treated as publishers. If I say something which is defamatory on talkTV, then you and I are going to be in serious trouble. But if I say something on Twitter, I don't think Elon Musk is going to be in trouble, and I think he should be.
And let me ask you about this. If it should turn out that this individual at the BBC has not broken the law, in other words, did not request or look at pictures of this young person when he was under the age of 18, so when he was 17, as has been suggested. So he didn't technically break the law, but if it should turn out that he did look at pictures or request performances from this young person when he was over 18, so therefore hasn't broken the law, but it finds out that he has done that, do you think it would be impossible for this person to continue working at the BBC? Do you think this person would have to be dismissed?
Well, a criminal offence is not the only grounds for dismissal from an organisation. The BBC has a set of editorial guidelines. Those editorial guidelines are strictly applied. And if a BBC employee has routinely broken or grievously breached the editorial guidelines, then the BBC would be entitled to end his service with the BBC, irrespective of whether or not he faces criminal charges. I don't think we're at that position yet, but for example, using menacing and abusive language online, even if it was in response to what could be described as an attempt at blackmail or certainly an attempt at leverage, might be regarded as being an unreasonable way to behave. And the BBC could reach that conclusion. But we have got a time delay here, because whilst the police are deciding whether or not they're going to do anything at all about these allegations, the BBC's own internal process is stalled. And just as the Prime Minister today said he wanted a quick outcome and a rigorous inquiry, but a quick outcome to that rigorous inquiry, I think most of us would like both speed and rigour in this. And I don't think we're going to get it, because I think that the police will have to complete their probing scope before the BBC is able to continue with its own internal activities.